The one thing that I was afraid of for those 5.5 years became my reality that day. And I think that's also just still hard to grasp. He had reached his limit of ways he could hurt me. And I think he was desperate and didn't know what else to do. And I think he did that because he knew that that was my worst nightmare. I don't know, I just, sorry. It does make me feel guilty just because it's just really just a simple fact. I think, what if I just never took him seriously? I hold a lot of that guilt on myself, and it's been, sorry, not a happy memory. I actually remember this day, and I was kind of leaning away from him because this was not too long. I kind of took it to the extreme, and I didn't realize how broken he was. And the fact that a 17, 18-year-old girl at that point could not fix that. If I could change bringing Teddy into my life, I would do anything to change that. And now that I realize that, it's like, damn, like, sorry. Oh, this is my high school graduation photo. My grandma, she came from DC, so my dad was really happy. My sisters came, my mom. This is probably one of his proudest days. I can kind of even see it just on his face. I did graduate with honors. I had a 3.9. So I got like a special cord for my ROTC achievements also. And then I was part of one of our like school clubs for our academics. So I also got a cord for that one. So they were really, really proud this day. I'm like, wow, this is great. I'm finally like, I made it. I love my dad so much. He was just like the rock of our family. He would randomly throughout the week, we would go play basketball. But after a while, I started to get better. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna take you and we're gonna play, but I'm gonna like watch from over here. And he would just show me little things, like he showed me how to change an oil filter, how to change my own oil, how to change a tire. He would always tell us, like, if I'm ever not here, you know, I want to make sure that you'll be able to take care of yourself and do these things. He always sacrificed for us. For me, my mom, my sisters, our whole family, really anybody he cared about, he sacrificed so much. It was very disappointing for me to have to leave the Air Force Academy. I was very hurt, like I was like heartbroken. I called my parents from Colorado crying. They gave me the opportunity to leave, go home, and come back and, just restart next year with the next class. But then that summer is when me and Teddy started dating. When I first realized my feelings towards Teddy, there were definitely the butterflies and just little things that, anything new that he might say or do would, just make me feel, I don't know, like just butterflies, I guess. So it was good at first. It's almost like Teddy was like an outcast in his family. They just didn't treat him like my family treats each other. It made me feel bad. It made me feel like, anytime someone needs help, I just want to help. So when I saw him, having these family issues, I'm like, okay, maybe I can help. Something that I thought would be a good thing backfired. I think it makes me so emotional because I just wish I could go back to that time. That was like such a pivotal point. I feel like if I would have just made one different decision, that maybe everything that happened with Teddy wouldn't have happened. One day I remember my dad had told me that he saw Teddy at a fast food restaurant. He walked into the restaurant, he saw Teddy. He was there with another female. They were holding hands. This was maybe about 6 months or so after I had told my parents that me and Teddy were dating. So I did ask Teddy about the whole girl at the fast food restaurant. And of course, he claimed that it was just his friend. He gave me this whole speech and, you're the only person I want to be with. It was kind of like a love bombing of words. I covered for Teddy so many times, especially, I tried to do everything I could to make him not look like the type of person that he was clearly showing everyone he was. I didn't want to accept the fact that the person that I thought I was in love with at the time was possibly doing something wrong. Teddy had gotten in a few fights before we met, so I just heard, about how he could be a little confrontational. And I think I definitely should have paid that more attention, but I didn't see it as necessarily a red flag at that time. So I remember this night, me and Teddy, we were with a bunch of friends, and there was this guy just being overly pushy.
Yo, what's up?
He was just like, what's your number? What's your name? And just not letting it go when we ignored him.
I just want to know your name.
Teddy zooms over and he's like, what's up? Like, you messing with my girlfriend, da, da, da. So they get into it. Teddy just hit him one time and knocked him out. Everybody was just like this whole big thing. Everybody's like, oh my gosh. That was the first time I saw him hurt somebody. And I feel like at that moment in time, I'm like, okay, maybe your bad reputation could, protect me somehow. Like, he's a protector kind of person. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe this is like my dad. I thought, okay, maybe I can help him change. I see these bad things, but that doesn't mean you have to be a bad person forever. Because now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, you could have de-escalated that situation differently. I definitely should have taken that as a red flag. I think back then I thought of it as, this like grand thing that you've done for me. Like, oh, you protected me. Like, oh, wow, like how, But now it's It was kind of almost a form of control, I feel like. Kind of using that situation to make me feel safe, even though I wasn't really safe with him. When we first started dating, Teddy had got in a few fights, just some negative situations back then. At that point, his temper, nothing had got better. We were starting to argue here and there. And yeah, my parents found out a couple times about the altercations I got in because of Teddy, and, they were upset, and I was disappointed in myself. That's when it just really started to be like, okay, this isn't what I thought it was gonna be. I broke up with him and I started dating someone else. I went to a party one night with the guy that I started, recently talking to after I cut Teddy off. The next thing I hear, someone's like, "Oh, Teddy's outside." In my mind, I'm like, maybe it's a coincidence. But then they're like, he's not just like outside chilling, like he's outside with the bat. Me and a couple of my homegirls, walked over to Teddy and were like, what are you doing? Like, what's all this about?
What are you doing here?
I came here to get you. We're leaving.
Teddy basically told me I'm leaving with him. He was coming there to show either me or the new guy I was trying to talk to that, like, oh, you can't have her type of thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's coming here and he's gonna beat up the guy that I just started talking to for no reason.
Practice school, wide open. He's a dead man.
Either I get in the car or it's gonna be some sort of altercation. This is what's gonna satisfy him. Let me just do it.
Okay. Come on.
It was scary at the time. He begged and pleaded, please talk to me, we can make it work. It was almost like an apology, but almost like you have no choice but to forgive me and take me back. I ended up leaving with him that night. We talked and I decided to take him back. I believed the things he told me about how he would change and what he would change. I saw the things that were wrong, but I didn't think that it would become an aggression towards me. He was so, already into controlling me that there was nothing else I could do to leave him alone. That probably wouldn't have resulted in something bad happening. So yeah, it's a lot of weight to carry and I need to release it somehow, but it's easier said than done. The whole reasoning behind moving to Greenville with Teddy was to try to get him away from all of the bad things that he was doing. I just felt like he had so much more potential. When we first moved in together, it was good, but then things changed after that. One day, we were kind of in the common area of the house and just going back and forth, arguing.
No! You need to start contributing.
It was kind of just a regular argument, but I said something and he just kind of came rushing at me. That's at that point when he pushed me down and started choking me on the floor. I'm like, what's going on? I couldn't really fight back. It just happened so fast. And I, look at him and his face, it's anger. It doesn't look like he's in control. He would call me a bitch or, you, or just anything that he could to degrade me as much as possible in that moment. And then I also thought, if you try to fight back, he might hurt you even worse. So I just kind of let it happen and just waited for it to be over. Probably held me down for at least 15 seconds, long enough to where I literally had no air left in my lungs. I thought, okay, I'm about to pass out. And that's when he released me, and I sat there for a while. I didn't move. I just never experienced so much hate from someone before. Just the feeling that I felt in that moment when it was actually happening, like I could feel like hatred. I'm like, in my mind, I could have just died. By the time he did come back, he helped me get up and brought me some water, and he was very apologetic. He was crying. So I think it was just him trying to persuade me that he was so sorry that it wouldn't happen again. He knew I had a good heart, and he used that to his advantage. And I didn't want to call and tell my parents because I thought, oh, this was only one time, and if I call the police on him, we'll never be together again. I just tried to keep it between us and protect him yet again. I thought, okay, this was just a mistake. I didn't die. It's okay. It'll be okay. It's kind of what I told myself, and not knowing that this was gonna become a whole thing at that point. They told us that they would be searching the house. At that time, Teddy was dealing with different things with people's bank accounts, and he had the credit cards that weren't in his name. They ended up first arresting Teddy. I was arrested for possession of stolen goods since the credit cards that Teddy had were actually in my room. At that moment, that's when it kind of really hit me, what is going on? I'm like, this is not how my life was supposed to turn out. I'm like, I did everything, growing up just to make sure that this moment didn't happen. It kind of was like a reality check. And it made me really look at Teddy like, okay, is it you? Are you the reason why these bad things are happening to me? I've never had this happen before. The only thing I was worried about was how disappointed my parents were gonna be. That next day, my parents were supposed to be driving to come to this really big honors award ceremony at ECU. You guys are supposed to be picking me up to go to this ceremony, and instead, you're picking me up from the county jail. It really put things, I think, into perspective for me at that point. I was definitely ashamed. I was embarrassed. My dad blamed Teddy for the arrest because I never had a history of getting into trouble or really just doing anything wrong. He felt like had I not been with Teddy, my life would have been taking a different turn at that point. I saw something in him that I wanted him to see in himself. And instead of me changing him into that person that I thought he could become, it's like he slowly started changing me into the person that he wanted me to be and the person really that he was. Teddy ended up getting 6 months that he had to serve in jail, and I got about 18 months of probation. Honestly, once he went to jail, I moved back with my parents. So my dad, he definitely was just supportive, no matter what. At the same time that he's like, consoling me, like giving me a hug, like, oh, it's okay. He's also telling me like, okay, it's okay, but you need to figure out what you're gonna do. So it was like, I'm like, okay, now I need to figure out the next step. Kind of saw how life could be without Teddy, and it was actually a lot better. So I just saw a lot of positive changes, and as soon as he got back out, everything just went back downhill again. So this is when we went out one of those times to the country. I didn't really think anything of it at that time. But after putting it into perspective, it's like, what were you practicing for? He always made sure he had a gun from the time that we first started dating. He was actually very insecure. Probably the most insecure person I've ever met. He did like to come off as like the tough guy. I think that he thought that that made him look like a macho man or like the cool dude. And the guns didn't make me nervous until close to the end. Right after that time, after Teddy got out of jail, we were starting to argue here and there. All the negative things were really starting to kind of show themselves more. We got into an argument, probably, again, something minor. He tried to push my head into the trash can. It was just bleeding as soon as he did it. And instead of him, are you okay? Or give me a towel or anything, he went to the room and started packing his stuff and panicking. And meanwhile, I'm just, sitting on the floor bleeding. He was more concerned with himself getting in trouble than the fact that he just gashed my head open. This photo is probably a day or two after the day that Teddy bashed my head into the kitchen counter. So that's the scar, and I had to get 5 stitches. It wasn't like a direct, don't tell anybody. It was more so him putting it into the scenario of, well, if you tell somebody, I'm gonna go to jail, I'm gonna get in trouble. He knows how much I care, so instead of him saying, oh, don't tell on me because this or that, he's making me feel like I would be the one holding him back if I told on him. It's like he was playing this mind game because he knew I wanted the best for him. He was a master manipulator. So when my mom asked what happened to my forehead, I actually told her that I slipped on a rug in the kitchen and I fell and I hit my head, and that was kind of the story. She didn't believe it because she knows that I was an athlete my whole life, and I never really had clumsy spells where I just tripped or fell. It just solidified exactly what I already said in my head, that this will never work. I have to find a way out. The main kind of argument when it's a domestic violence relationship is, oh, why didn't you just leave? And it's really not that easy. You can literally just take your feet and walk away, but who's to say that once you do that, that person's actually gonna leave you alone? but you never know what might be around that corner. I had this gut feeling that the day you try to leave him, he's gonna find a way to hurt you even worse. And he's gonna knock on my mom's door, and then he's gonna shoot my mom, and then he's gonna knock on my sister's door and shoot her and all my nieces and nephews and my other sister. That was literally what played out in my head of what would happen if I left him. So I'm just like, to avoid all that, I'll just stay and deal with whatever it is that he may do, because that's better than what I, in my gut, feel like is the outcome is gonna be. After that incident, my parents really noticed what all had been going on. So at that point, that's when, my dad was like, no, he can't do this. And I want to, go forward with pressing charges. But I didn't want to leave him. But there was nothing that my dad could actually do. So he did try, but me being of age, you can't really, call for somebody else. So it was just kind of like he felt helpless. So one day we were at the townhouse. Somebody knocked on our door. The police officer came to me and Teddy's townhouse. Teddy was like, why is the police here? He was very paranoid, and I kind of went into like a panic, because Teddy, mind you, is right there with both of his guns. Like he always does when he doesn't know who somebody is that comes to the house. He has both of his guns in his hand. And I walked out the door, and the cop, he has no idea.
Hi, ma'am.
And I'm just panicking, kind of trying to figure out how to get rid of the cop without telling him that Teddy is standing behind the door with a gun. Well, your dad wanted me to come and check on you. So I was like, I'm like, yes, I'm fine, everything's fine. And then I think he could kind of feel that I was trying to be short and rush the conversation. In that moment, when I was talking to the cop, I was convinced that Teddy would shoot him right then and there and not care at all, just to save himself. I just kept assuring him everything's okay.
Okay.
Eventually he ended up leaving. I just knew it couldn't last but so much longer. After 5 years of lying to people about what you've been doing and all these things, and it seems like everything is trying to come to light, I felt like, I'm like, okay, my parents know. I'm like, okay, the police came by. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is the time where I need to finally figure out how to leave him alone. But it was just no more rope left at that point. Oh, this is Fat Boy. This is our puppy that we got. And yeah, I love Fat Boy. He was cool. He was a really good dog. He didn't really do much. But I was like, okay, that's just you. I'm like, that's your personality. I'm like, you like it, I love it. When we went and got the dog, it was Teddy's idea. He was in love, I was in love, but as time faded, a couple months went by, and he just started to treat Fat Boy different. He wouldn't feed him. He would actually beat the dog. He, eventually ended up killing him. After probably 30 minutes or so after I saw Fat Boy, I cried. I went upstairs and cried first. I didn't want to watch him bury Fat Boy, so I ended up just leaving the house for the day so I didn't have to watch that. And when I got back, he just acted like nothing happened, like everything was normal and just go on about life, so. He saw that I had something else that I cared about and it wasn't him, and he got jealous, you know, even though it's a dog. He got jealous of the dog, and it made me a lot more fearful of him and the things that he would be capable of. I used to watch a lot of crime stuff, and they always said that, you know, people that have these real issues, they start off with animals. That stuck in my head, that he was kind of on a pathway to more than an animal. And it did scare me. I looked at him completely different. I think that the thing that I asked for the most was to just be able to safely get away from him, and my family also. And I could never see a way, no matter how many different scenarios I would put together in my head, no matter how many different ways I would think of how to possibly leave him, it always ended with him hurting somebody that I cared about. I was more okay with something happening to me than something happening to my family. I didn't want the person that I brought into their life to hurt them. So right around the beginning of 2020, after everything happened with Fat Boy, me and Teddy broke up. So there was one time me and Teddy were actually arguing, and he again choked me to the point where I had, you know, bruises around my neck from his hands, and then my face was purple and blue blotchy. And then he takes the broomstick and starts beating me with the broom. After that, I got up and I started packing my stuff.
You get your ass up here!
And he screamed at me to come upstairs. And something just went off in my head, like, don't go upstairs. I don't know why, I'm just like, no. I'm like, I'm not coming upstairs.
Dreamer!
I'm like, okay, yeah, he's about to get his gun and he's about to come down here and kill me. Is what I was thinking, and the only way I thought I was gonna make it out of the house is just by turning around, going out the front door and making a run for it.
Where are you?
It was just this overwhelming feeling. Just don't talk to him, don't say anything, just run. And that's what I did.
Dreamer!
When I finally make it out of the house, I've made it far enough out of his eyesight to where I can now call somebody to come and pick me up, and I can get away from him.
Dreamer! Dream!
A little bit of time goes by, I call my dad. I tell him, you know, what happened. And he said, immediately, he's like, I'm on the way, where are you at? I started to hear Teddy's car. I would just kind of try to duck or move to the side or see if I could see him and position myself to where he can't see me. So I did hide all the way until, you know, my dad made it to me. I get in the car, we pull off.
He was just here. We gotta go.
We probably didn't make it like 500 feet. We make a right, and Teddy is coming. Teddy literally swerves into our lane head on, so we hit each other head on. And I'm looking at him in this moment when our cars are just literally touching like this. And I look at him and I say, "What the are you doing? Stop." He didn't stop. And in that moment, I saw him pop his trunk, and I told my dad he has a gun. Teddy had already got out of his car with his rifle, knowing what he was about to do. I did get out of the car to try to run and stop him, but I couldn't make it to him fast enough. And he shot my dad. And at that point, when I did run around the car towards Teddy, he actually stopped shooting at my dad for a second and pointed at me. And I looked at him and he didn't shoot me. He just went back to shooting at my dad. By the time I got to him, I grabbed it, and it's like he just kind of snapped out of it. I didn't really think about it. You know, my first instinct was just save my dad.
Dad, come on, stay with me.
At that point, I'm thinking that, you know, there's still some chance that he would be alive.
I love you.
I did actually hear my dad take his last breath. I told him I loved him, and that's when I heard like the last sound, like he was trying to say it back, but he couldn't. And that was it. I was just screaming at the top of my lungs. I was just in shock. I didn't really understand what had just happened. And Teddy, he asked me if I would take $100,000 to tell the police that he was protecting himself against my dad. The audacity you must have to say something like that to somebody after what you just did leads me to believe even more just how evil he is, because how could you do that to somebody and then turn around and make it seem like money could fix that? I could only think about one thing at that point, and that was the fact that my dad was sitting there lifeless because of him. I've been trying to make it make sense, and no matter what I come up with for why he did it, it doesn't make sense. And if you wanted to hurt me, why didn't you shoot me too? So this is Teddy 4 years after being arrested. The nothingness, the soullessness is still there. I know for a fact he's not coping well in prison. I've actually spoken to people that have seen him in prison, and he's not doing good. I'm not afraid of what's gonna happen when he gets out of prison in 35 years, but he should be afraid of what's gonna happen when he gets out of prison. My dad did everything he could to protect me, my sisters, my mom. If he was given the opportunity to know what the outcome would be, he would do it again. You know, he was fearless. That's what we did, and just like with our necklaces, like right now, he's in he's in Texas, he's in Georgia, he's in North Carolina, he's everywhere right now. So I think he's somewhere sitting watching me right now. So.
She'd made it part of the dance. And I, who had built an empire of denial, realized she'd turned her wound into her truth. The collapse of vanity is not sudden. It decays like wood under rain. At first, the structure still stands, proud. Then one morning, you touch it, and it crumbles at your fingertips. I sold most of my costumes. The ones I kept still smelled faintly of sweat and perfume, the scent of performance and pretense. I used the money to pay debts, hospital bills, and silence. Silence costs more than fame ever did. At night, I replayed recordings of my old shows. I watched myself move, the precision, the fire, the illusion of control. And I noticed something I'd never seen before. Fear. Not in my steps, but in my eyes. A constant, desperate plea. Don't stop looking at me. That was the real addiction. Not applause, not money, not power. Witnessing. I wanted to exist only in the eyes of others. Now that no one looked, I didn't know who I was. Months later, I went back to where it began. The door creaked open, dust swirling like memory. The stage still smelled of wood, sweat, and dreams. I stood there, limping, barefoot, and whispered to the empty seats, "You watched me rise. Now watch me fall." No echo, only stillness. I sat where my father once adjusted the lights. I thought of how he'd wanted me to shine, not to burn. That night, I decided to dance, just once more. Not for cameras, not for redemption, just for me. I placed Lucia's photo on the edge of the stage, pressed play on an old cassette of Cante Hondo, the deep song, the kind of flamenco that doesn't entertain but laments. I began slowly, my body remembering what my heart feared. Each movement small, fragile, trembling, a conversation with pain itself. When the final note faded, I collapsed, sobbing, my palms flat on the cold wood. The floor smelled of dust and forgiveness. You can't undo a broken step, but maybe you can learn to walk again. Days later, I sent Lucia a letter, short, trembling. Lucia, the spotlight was never stolen. It was shared. I just blinded myself trying to own it. If you ever dance again, save me a seat in the dark. Elena. I didn't know if she'd read it, but writing it felt like exhaling after years underwater. Recovery was slow. I learned to walk again, though the limp stayed. A reminder, a scar that whispered truth. I began teaching small workshops, not technique, but emotion. How to listen to silence. How to find rhythm in regret. Students came not for fame, but for honesty. And for the first time, I felt something close to peace. But the guilt never left entirely. It softened, like a bruise that still aches when the rain comes. The collapse of fame doesn't end in tragedy. It ends in recognition. The recognition that what we call success is often just applause over emptiness, and what we call failure is sometimes the first honest breath we take. Lucia came one evening, older, serene, limping still. She stood in the doorway, holding a bouquet of white carnations, simple, pure. I froze. She smiled. No anger, no pity. "Teach me your fire," she said softly, "and I'll teach you my peace." For a moment, everything stopped. Time, regret, noise. We stood there, two dancers, two ghosts of the same wound, breathing the same air. Then we laughed, quietly, like women who had survived themselves. It took me years to understand that confession isn't about forgiveness. It's about finding a language for the silence that has been devouring you. For me, that language was movement, even when I could no longer dance. When Lucia and I began teaching together, something unspoken passed between us. She never asked for an apology, and I never offered one aloud. But in the way she moved, in the pauses between her steps, she allowed me to see her pain, and in return, she allowed me to share mine. Some afternoons, after class, we would sit by the studio window watching the children practice. Their laughter filled the air like music that didn't need rhythm. Lucia once said, "They dance because they don't yet know shame. That's what makes them free." Her words lingered in me like prayer. Spain worships its dancers. But few realize that flamenco was never about fame. It was about confession. Every stomp, every cry, every trembling note of cante hondo is a wound exposed. It isn't performed, it's survived. I had confused performance with purpose. Now I was learning the difference. The first time I told my students the truth, the room fell silent. We had been discussing artistic integrity, and I heard myself say, "Once I hurt someone to get ahead." I told myself it was ambition, but it was fear. Their eyes widened, not in judgment, but in something deeper. Recognition. I realized then how easily pain multiplies in silence. How many of them were already carrying their own invisible glass shards, waiting for someone to admit that art, like life, sometimes bleeds. Lucia placed her hand on my shoulder afterward. "You finally stopped performing," she whispered, "and started living. I used to believe art could make me immortal. Now I understand. It's the act of dying honestly that makes it beautiful." Every movement is a confession, every silence a prayer. Months passed. Our classes became a refuge for the forgotten. Former dancers, street performers, even refugees who'd never seen a stage. They brought stories, not resumes. And through them, I rediscovered what flamenco really meant. Duende. That raw, spiritual trembling that lives between agony and grace. One evening, after class, a teenage girl named Anna stayed behind. She hesitated, then said softly, "Señora Elena, my mother says dancing won't feed me." I smiled sadly. It won't, but it might feed something else you'll starve without. The duende is not applause. It's that ache behind the ribs when truth finally finds its sound. Lucia's limp, my scar, they were both forms of duende. Proof that what breaks us doesn't destroy us. It tunes us. I began writing letters, not to Lucia this time, but to myself. Fragments of memory, raw and unedited. You envied light and forgot you were made of it. You thought applause was love. You mistook survival for success. Each letter ended the same way. Dance again, but this time